But however, I think we should look at again, which is, I think this is even more important. We've talked about the war itself.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the politics behind the war. I think
Right.
that piece of conversation is important.
Mm-hmm.
And let's maybe we start with let's start with the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The United States has military dominance over Iran. That's a fact.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That is a clear fact. There's no we cannot challenge that. It's a fact.
Okay.
So militarily, the United States has the upper hand.
Okay.
Okay. Now, that is the war aspect. Let's look at the politics behind the war. A majority of Americans, first of all, the Americans were not sold the war. They were not informed. They were not convinced
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
this war was necessary for the Americans. That's the first
Mm-hmm.
thing. Secondly, a majority of Americans are not in support of the war.
Mm-hmm.
Were not in support of the war. They believe that they are only in this because Israel wanted or convinced Donald Trump to get in.
Mm-hmm.
They don't believe that it is in America's interest to be fighting a war with Iran at this point in time. That is the politics. Because a majority of Americans do not support the war, Donald Trump's how you call it, his when you do polling, and his
Approval ratings.
approval rating has dropped significantly,
Mm-hmm.
very significantly. His base is divided into has been fragmented into several pieces, to the point where at this point, if there was an elections in America today, the Republicans will lose the House, they will lose the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And if this keep going, Donald Trump would be a lame duck president by the end of November.
Mm-hmm.
That is the politics of this war.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the cost of living in the United States, fuel prices have gone up, which would eventually result to increase in the prices of other basic commodities.
Mm-hmm.
That is an issue for Americans. Americans are more interested in they are more interested in the domestic economic situation more than they are interested in what is going on outside the United States,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what is going on outside the United States, the war with Iran has a direct implication, a direct impact on how the common American person on the street is doing.
Mm-hmm.
That is the politics of the war.
Yeah.
At this point in time, the politics of this war is against Donald Trump. And it is for that reason that Donald Trump needs an off ramp. He is going to
Mm-hmm.
bully and pressure Iranians into a negotiation because he needs it
Yeah.
before November. He needs this war to end as soon as possible so he can have a few months to rebuild his reputation. Again, Donald Trump was elected into the presidency because he promised that he was not going to be fighting any wars.
Mm-hmm.
He was a peace president. But so far, he has demonstrated to his base, to the MAGA base, to the Republican Party, to the American as a whole, that he was not the peace president that he claimed to be. That is the politics behind Donald Trump's behind this war. Now let's look at Iran, the politics, the war. Let's look at the war itself. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Iran is getting a pounding. That's a fact. However, all they need is to, at the end of the day, survive. If this war takes 10 years, if it takes 3 months, at the end of the day, all Iran needs is to survive as a state. That is all they need. Now, let's look at the politics behind this. The Americans killed the Ayatollah. What happened? It galvanized the Iranians. They all came, I mean, a majority of them came out to the street in support of the administration, in support of the flag. The United States had anticipated that with the death of the Ayatollah and a vacuum with the top military officials, the people were going to rise up and overthrow the government. That did not happen. The Iranian people are enlisting into the army in record numbers. They are coming out on the streets in support of their government every day in different cities. That is the politics of
Mm-hmm.
this war. Iran now has control, effective control over the Strait of Hormuz. They determine who goes through. Whoever is going through now has to pay a toll to the state coffers. It's working for Iran. Iran's oil now is being sold. Iran's oil that was had been embargoed and sanctioned to oblivion is now being sold in the international trade market. Why? Because they need the oil to reduce the price of oil in the market. So Iran is making a killing out of that. Not only Iran, there are a couple of other states that are making a killing, but Iran is making a killing out of that. They are collecting a toll from the Strait of Hormuz. They are determining which vessels go through the Strait of Hormuz. Yes, they may have lost the Ayatollah, they may have lost a couple of top generals, but Iran is still standing. And it is the politics that is keeping Iran at this point. Yeah, they've suffered losses, but it's the politics behind the war that is keeping Iran at this safe at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that just wanted to kind of look into,
Yeah,
uh,
fair
uh,
point.
and I'll
You,
let
you
you
you said a lot there.
conclusions.
I mean, there's not much for me to push back on, the American politics and this war. Okay, I agree with you. I think Americans are beginning to reach their limit when it comes to the gas prices and the grocery prices. As a result of this war, we've all seen the price of gas jump up almost $1. So the American taxpayer is feeling the pinch of the gas prices. So I think, like I had predicted when we just started talking about this, the American taxpayers only have a certain time to be able to say, you know what, it's not worth it. If they feel like they're paying more at the pump than they were prior to the war, they are going to be questioning the motives of the president. And I think, I know I've been trying to say Iran is very much interested in negotiating. I think Trump on that front is very much interested in negotiating too, because he cares about the midterm elections that will be coming up in November. So, why Iran is interested, I would say Americans are interested. So, I really have not much pushback. I say if these things continue for another 2 weeks or so, you're really going to see Americans beginning to turn on Trump. That, my man, you said this thing was going to be a straw in the park. This has taken more than we anticipated, and they will only say that because it begins to affect them domestically, it begins to affect them by the prices of gas that they pay at the pump and everything. But so really, me and you don't have any much disagreement on that front. So I think Trump is almost pushing it to the end of the rope. So the quicker he ends this thing, the better for him too politically. I know he doesn't have another term to run for, but
Yeah, but he
he's
has two
interested
more
in
years to go, right?
passing his
If he doesn't
agenda. Yeah.
if he
So
doesn't
he
if
had
he doesn't
right.
if the Democrats take the House and the Senate, he's
Yeah.
just going to be lame duck president. He might
Just
rule by
lame
decree,
done.
but
Whatever. Yeah.
how much decree
He can.
can you rule by,
Yeah.
right? So I think
He can pass an
he
agenda.
definitely
Believe me, you're not going to get pushback from me on that front because I get it. Okay, when Americans feel like we are paying too much, for sure, it's going to be so. Yes, of course, Trump is really interested. That's why I'm not really. I know there's a group online and even in the media who are thinking about troops on the ground. Trump campaigned against that seriously.